maybe a few minutes late, but I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. It's now 7:32 p.m. I'd like to call the order of the Fenton Township Board meeting on this 20th day of September 2021. Can I please ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we do have a full agenda tonight, so we're going to move on. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine?
Present.
Reed?
Present.
Kotrick is absent. Krug is present. Kessler is absent. Gopal is absent. Tucker?
I am present.
Number 4. You have a quorum.
All right. I'd like to note for the record that Township Attorney Jack Belzer, our Operations Manager Tom Broker, and our Zoning Administrator Mike Deem are also present. Additionally, I think joining us via Zoom, do we have Julia?
Julia's there. I don't see Alan though.
And
Melissa.
Alan's not there. Usually Melissa.
Oh,
Is
Melissa's
that
there. That's Melissa in the middle. Wave, Melissa. Oh, there she is.
Melissa? Oh, okay.
There she
Sorry,
is.
Melissa.
They don't look like Alan.
Oh, there you go.
Thankfully.
Rather see you than Alan anyway, so.
There you go.
He's here too.
All right, since we do have some that have joined us via Zoom, Tom, will you detail the procedures for those attending tonight's virtual meeting?
Yes, to the members of the public attending tonight's meeting in person or via Zoom, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded to be shown on public access television, Spectrum Channel 191. Recorded meetings are also posted on the Fenton Area Community Television YouTube channel. For those attending via Zoom, we ask that you keep your microphone muted until we reach portions of the meeting where the public comment is allowed, at which time further instruction will be given. For tonight's meeting, there are 4 public hearings: the Fairways at Spring Meadows PUD, and 3 special assessment hearings, Cottage Cove, Pine Lake, and fire protection, during which public comment will be accepted. All other public comment will be accepted near the end of the meeting. Meeting materials are available for download on the Township's website at www.fentontownship.org.
Thanks, Tom. All right, moving on to the first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Are there any requests to amend tonight's agenda?
I have a question. The agenda I had something about an appointment to the planning commission, but I didn't see anything in the packet. Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we didn't
Mark
have,
was stolen.
it's for Mark, but
Oh.
there really isn't anything in there other than we
I didn't
confirmed.
know. I didn't know, so.
Yeah, we-
Okay.
We confirmed that he wanted to be reappointed, but there's nothing to put in the packet.
Did he pay his fee?
All right. All right, nothing else?
Nope.
All right, a motion is ordered to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right,
support.
got him. It's been, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further questions? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Krug votes yes. Kotrick is absent. Kessler is absent. Reed?
Yes.
Gopal is absent. Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Well, starting off tonight, we have a presentation. Ed Colito.
Jeff Huda.
Oh, okay, Jeff, I'm sorry. I guess I should have looked in. There you are. That's how I saw you. I thought you were giving the presentation. Anyway, SLRP, Southern Lakes Park and Rec, on lab funding opportunities in the Pathway Project, Phase 3. Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and I know you have a full agenda, so I'll be as brief as possible. Again, my name is Jeff Huda with Noack and Frous Engineering. We have been supporting Southern Lakes Parks and Rec and the LAF communities for the Phase 2 development, which is the Silver Lake Road piece of the trail system that is endeavored to be constructed within the southern Genesee County communities. The first slide that you have, I just want to give you a brief overview of the Phase 2 work. The Phase 2 project, again, is Silver Lake Road from Jennings Road to Triangle Park in Linden. The majority of that pathway is constructed through Fenton Township, and it's connecting the downtown Linden with downtown Fenton, and a lot of the amenities along the way. So, next slide. Just want to give you a brief update on that particular project. To date, that project has received $1.8 million and some change in grant funding. That was a total of 3 different grants. The Genesee County TAP, which is called local TAP monies, the trust fund grant through the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and then a grant from the Michigan Department of Transportation called the MDOT TAP grant. In addition to that, thus far, through local match, state bank funding, and other commitments for the project, has received $693,000 worth of funding for there. And then as far as fundraising goes, which is in progress, there's $283,000 that we are still fundraising for, and we have a lot of options or opportunities for continued funding. The project design completion is scheduled for June of 2022. The easement acquisition process, we're hoping for completion by the December of this year. And then start of construction of the Phase 2 project is May of 2023, just to kind of give you guys an idea. So now as we wrapped up and we feel that we've got a good hold on what's going on with the Phase 2 development, we're really starting to take a look at the Phase 3 development. You go to the next slide. This is the funding plan that was prepared for the Phase 2 development. And in there, and I think basically the very bright green boxes are your grants that you received. And the first grant, which is on the left side of the screen, is called Step 1. That is the local TAP monies. Those are monies that the state of Michigan, federal government have given to Genesee County to be able to disperse to various projects at the county's discretion. That is what we're here to talk about tonight. That is what we want to apply for going forward for the Phase 3 project. Next slide. When you look at the options for Phase 3, we really have identified 4 different options, and there might be a 5th option there as far as blending a couple of these options go. As a part of the process that Genesee County went through, and this goes back about 7-8 years ago, that they identified through an extensive public engagement process the priority locations of where pathways would be desired within the various communities. And Owen Road has been identified as a Tier 1 priority, and Fenton Road has been identified as a Tier 1 priority. So the options that we're presenting tonight are Owen Road from Silverwood to Linden County Park, and then option 2 we're going to consider as being a phased Owen Road option, so breaking that up into 2 different phases. Option 3 is a Fenton Road option from the Fenton city limits to Thompson Road Regional Dog Park and the Ray Road, just to extend that to the north to the township limit. And then option 4 that we're going to present is a phased option for the Fenton Road piece. And we'll talk a little bit more about the phasing of that in a little bit. Next slide, please. This graphic just really represents the areas that we're discussing so that you have a general idea of what that might look like. You have the Owen Road piece, which is at the pink at the bottom of the screen, and then on the left side, or excuse me, the right side of the screen, you have the Fenton Road piece. The Owen Road piece is approximately 2.6 miles long, and the Fenton Road piece is approximately 4.2 miles long. Next slide. This option or slide is really just representing the various options. So the option 1 is in the lower portion of the screen there. It has the Owen Road piece in its totality. And then we've got option 2A and 2B. Option 2A is going from Eleanor Street westerly to Linden County Park. And then option 2B is Eleanor Street going easterly to Silverwood Drive. And then looking up in the upper right-hand corner there, Option 3 is the Fenton Road piece in totality. And option 4A is from the city limit line to North Lake Shore, excuse me. I apologize, I forgot the
North Long Lake?
North Long Lake. I was going to say North Lake Shore Drive. So North Long Lake, and then from North Long Lake to the township limit line to the north would be Phase 4B. The next slide. This proximity map that you're seeing here is really just identifying all the connectivity that's going on as a result of the construction of these potential pathways. Again, these have been identified as Tier 1 pathways within the Fenton community. So I think of important notice on both of these options is the amount of connectivity between residential homes to the various elements that would be created as a part of this. So for example, Owen Road, if the Owen Road piece were constructed in totality, you have roughly 1,000 households that would be able to connect into the pathway system, connect to through an alternative transportation program, be able to go to Linden Park, go to downtown Linden, to basically navigate through many of the options that are available within all of the LAF communities. Similarly, the Fenton Road piece connects approximately 1,000 homes again to the same amenities and connectivity. The whole goal of these pathways is to provide an alternate transportation for homeowners and visitors to the LAF communities. Next slide. Of critical importance in this overall planning process is understanding the connection to the Iron Bell Trail. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The Iron Bell Trail is a trailway system that's being constructed from Belle Isle all the way to Ironwood, Michigan. It's been identified as a major priority for the state of Michigan, and it would be desirable to be able to connect into that Iron Bell Trail from an overall global perspective. Next slide. So Southern Lakes Parks and Rec received a grant from LAF Pathways. LAF Pathways is a community-based grassroots organization, and they funded through SLRP trail scoping for Owen Road and for the Fenton Road piece. Next slide. This slide, I think you may have received a link to download the entire trail scoping document. It's a very voluminous document. So I just wanted to not go through that document tonight because it would take a long time to do that. But just as an example, this is what the trail scoping documents look like. Noack and Frous went and walked every foot of the proposed pathways, looking for and identifying constraints, concerns, things that might impact cost. And we identified basically at a very schematic level what a pathway layout might look like. In this particular slide, you can see there's a culvert that connects Morrow Lake with Silver Lake, and we have to put a bridge structure in. This is the Owen Road piece. To the right of that, you've got some substantial wetlands and some boardwalk and some other things in there that are a cost driver for pathway construction on that Owen Road piece. But in general, that's what we did, is we took the time to really dial in and identify the costs associated with that. Next slide. The next slide is basically some graphical details, and again, there's 4 or 5 detail sheets in that whole trail scoping document. This happens to be a detail of the bridge structure that we would propose over the creek crossing there. Next slide. So what we learned is that the Owen Road piece, and we've estimated this in $2023 because we are planning considerably ahead of where we're at today. The Owen Road piece, which is 2.64 miles, has a total cost of $4.938 million to be able to build that. Next slide. The Fenton Road piece, which is 4.19 miles long, has a total cost of about $4.123 million. That's pretty similar to what we typically see in pathway construction. We typically look at that as about $1 million per mile, so that kind of came in within a reasonable target of what we would expect, especially considering cost of construction, inflation, and things of that nature. Next slide. So what we're doing now is looking at a bundle of grants. So the first domino in the bundle of grants is the the county TAP funds. That county TAP funds, for us to make application for that, will help secure future grants towards that overall process. Again, remember going back to the phase 2, we've been successful thus far of generating about $1.9 million in total grant funding for that project. Phase 2 of the pathway, which is the Silver Lake Road piece, received over $450,000 of county TAP funds. And that was that domino that precipitated the ability to keep applying for different grants and getting the momentum behind it. So county TAP dollars are available on a 3-year running cycle. And what that means is that the application process is ongoing right now. That submittal deadline is looming, and we have a slide for that a little bit later on. But they fund projects for the next 3 years. So if we lose the ability to apply for grant funds this year, then we would be waiting for a 3-year period before we'd be able to apply for grant monies again. Next slide. So the slide that you're seeing right now is the funding plan for the phase 3 development, which is really step 1 is securing those county TAP funds. So the priority options, next slide. The Owen Road piece, which is Silverwood to London County Park, we identified at the $4.9 million. Option 2A, which is Owen Road from Eleanor to London County Park, we've estimated that at about $2.2 million. Option 2B, which is the Owen Road from Silverwood to Eleanor, that's estimated at $2.7 million. Next slide. Option 3 is the Fenton Road from the city limits to Thompson Dog Park, Ray Road. That's the $4.123 million. Option 4A is from Fenton Road to Fenton city limits to North Long Lake. That's $2.3 million. Option 4B, Fenton Road, North Long Lake to Thompson Road Park and Ray Road. That's $1.8 million. Next slide. So really what we're trying to focus on today is selecting an option to move forward with. Assuming that you guys are still in favor of pathways, and as you've supported the pathway for Silver Lake Road, and the fact that Fenton Road and Owen Road have been identified as Tier 1 priorities through a public engagement process, which included the constituency of the Fenton Township. We are looking for your input as to what that next phase of work would be. As far as municipal commitments, thus far, the city of Fenton and the city of Linden have committed $20,000 over a 5-year period, $4,000 per year, towards funding for the phase 3 work. Argentine Township is taking this matter up very soon, and we're seeking from Fenton Township a similar commitment of $20,000 over a 5-year period for a financial commitment towards the match dollars required for the county TAP grant. And then Southern Lakes Parks and Rec is contributing $20,000, and then LAF Pathways is contributing the $12,500 towards that. So we're really looking for your financial commitment, and then also some direction on the overall choice on pathway. So next slide, only a couple more to go. Please bear with me. The lead agents in this, because these pathways, either one of these pathways is wholly contained within Fenton Township, we have to have an Act 51 agency who will be responsible for the application process moving forward. So in this particular situation, the lead agent on this, an applicant, will be the Genesee County Road Commission. Generally, Fenton Township, with the support of Southern Lakes Parks and Rec, will be the project sponsor. That means that you guys are going to be responsible for overseeing the project as it moves forward through the design, development, and construction process. Financial assistance is being granted by the various communities that this project is benefiting. And then it's important to note that, because I know that sometimes these are maybe daunting projects to undertake, because there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. That's what your professional service provider is going to be here for, is to make sure that you know what to need to do and when you need to do it, and keep you on the right path from that standpoint. Next slide. A couple of thoughts on Genesee County requirements and some of the notes that we've gotten. So we've had communication with Genesee County, Alex Patsy. He knows that we're meeting tonight. He wanted to be here tonight, but he had a meeting in another community. But Genesee County Road Commission will be the lead agent. All the contractual obligation for the project is passed on through agreement to Fenton Township. The project must adhere to all the requirements for Genesee County Road Commission permitting. Fenton Township and Southern Lakes Parks and Rec jointly, because Southern Lakes Parks and Rec is going to be a partner in this project, will be responsible to verify all the right-of-way and easement requirements for the project. Fenton Township SLRP will coordinate with MDOT with assistance from your professional service provider. Project is responsible for any utility relocations that may occur. We haven't identified any right now, but that was something that the county wanted to make sure that we brought to your attention. Another thing that the county wanted us to bring to your attention is that Owen Road is planned for a future widening. So that may impact your overall decision on what particular pathway you might select. There's no immediate future, so it's not like it's going to happen next year, but it is in the planning process. And then the last thing that the county wanted us to remind you of is that the pathway on Owen Road, definitely there's concerns about making sure that it's in the proper location, so that when that widening does occur in the future, that we're not tearing out the pathway or reconstructing major elements of it. Alex Patsy did indicate that there is no future widening plan for Fenton Road, so we're kind of a little bit freer and clearer there. So in summary, Fenton Township tonight is more of an informational meeting. We're trying to give you all the information that we can to help you make a decision. We're here to answer your questions tonight. We hope to be back with you on the October 4th meeting to hopefully pass some resolutions. One is to support a project. You do have a sample resolution on your as one of your handouts. And then we would want to go through and actually identify what you guys believe is the priority pathway that you'd like to see. And then also hopefully passing a resolution to approve funding commitment of the $20,000, which is $4,000 over a 5-year period. Not to overly complicate things, but I talked earlier about a blended approach. And this came through conversations that we had with Jacob Maurer and Alex Patsy. Jacob Maurer is used to be the planner over at Genesee County Planning, and then Alex Patsy is obviously with the Road Commission. What Jacob had indicated was that there was a strategy that has been employed by other communities in the past to actually, rather than just submit one application, is to actually submit 2 applications. So you could conceivably submit an application for the Owen Road piece and for the Fenton Road piece, knowing that one of those applications is going to get denied. And what happens is that because we're so early in this design or this grant process, what we don't know is that 2-3 years from now, what priority is MDOT going to have with respect to grant funding. There's a lot of things that in our mind, well, let me backtrack one a little bit. Alex, Patsy, and we believe that the more appropriate, the higher scoring alternate here is the Owen Road piece. But the Owen Road piece comes with a lot of other strings attached to it. We got road widenings, we've got larger expenses, we've got other things to deal with there. The reason why that's an attractive project is because we're connecting to the county park, we're connecting 1,000 residents to that county park. That is very highly desirable. What makes the Fenton Road piece desirable is the potential connection to the Iron Belt Trail and the global aspect of having trail connectivity within the southern Genesee County. I think the problem that we have a little bit with the Fenton Road piece is that cross-community communication, that the work or the groundwork to engage Grand Blanc Township, any other communities that might be impacted that allow that connection to occur. We don't have a lot of that groundwork in place yet, so Fenton Road may score a little bit less. But 3 years from now, if we can get some more groundwork in place, and we can show that we have collaboration amongst communities to be able to do the Fenton Road piece, Fenton Road may actually become a more attractive option, and it may be an option that you folks might be more preferable towards. So our recommendation, which was a part of the handout, is to actually make application for both projects in a phased manner. So our recommendation would be to make an application for Owen Road as the primary project, because that's been identified as the next priority through the Genesee County process that they've gone through. But do it in phases. Let's not take a $5 million project and try to do it at once. What we'd like to do is break it up into smaller chunks so that those grant dollars, instead of just applying for one grant cycle for a $5 million project, let's apply for a grant for phase one, and then let's go through the same grant cycle for phase two, which is basically doubling your eligibility for some of the grant dollars associated with that. So going from Eleanor to Linden County Park, generally pretty clear of any major obstacles. We don't have bridges, we don't have any significant boardwalk features, and connecting to the park would be something that would be highly desirable. And then when we look at the Fenton Road piece, similarly, our recommendation would be make application for that project as well, from city limit line to North Long Lake Road. And then that project, both of those projects are roughly in that $2 million range, and when you follow a lot of the projects that are getting funded, that seems to be kind of the sweet spot of a lot of the types of pathways and things that are actually being built. Silver Lake Road is in that same general ballpark as it relates to length and funding, so breaking those projects up into phases is not totally unreasonable. So really what it boils down to is tonight is to again give you information, hopefully answer questions that you may have, and then come back before you again on the 4th to hopefully bring some finality to what we're going to do for the county TAP funds.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Again, just to make a note that the board is here this evening not to make any decisions. The board will be asked at the next meeting to choose which project will become phase 3 and to consider adopting a resolution committing up to $20,000 in 2026 towards grant matching funds. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that at this point. Does anyone have a question for Jeff? Sir.
Randy Dunlap, 6286 Lobdell Road. I noticed on the map that a future pathway was right in front of my house to connect into Argentine. It's going to take up half my front yard.
Who maintains those?
What are you on Owen Road, sir?
We're looking at your map and it has a future
Okay.
thing going down Lobdell to meet down in Argentine, and you put that in, there goes my front yard. I'm already screwed with a subdivision trying to go in next to me. I mean, what do you, I'll have a 20-foot pathway right down my yard. For what, 2 bicycles a summer?
I'd be happy to talk to you. I wanted to understand where you're specifically located, because some of the map imagery that we showed tonight was actually generated from the county, and it's older maps. I don't know that that pathway is proposed or isn't proposed.
It shows it on the map.
Okay.
Brought up at prior meeting.
Okay.
So you can't answer his question at this point?
I'm highly against him, I'm sorry.
Well, we don't know who maintains it. We have, you know, a lot of landscaping.
We're not proposing a pathway on Lobdell Road, so.
Okay.
It's not what we were told.
Yes,
Yeah, just
Charlie?
a question. I noticed going through the park, I would think, considering the mess that Owen Road is, you'd be a lot better off to cut down Whitaker and go into the park and meet the path that's in the park already. It would save better than a half a mile along Owen and Linden Road. It would get onto a road that's very minimally traveled. It has plenty of right of way. It just seems to me that it would save you maybe $1 million, which I think would be worthwhile, and it would be an easier road.
So I think, again, the priorities that have been presented tonight were through a public engagement process through Genesee County, and these particular pathways were what we were proposing. So we can certainly look at alternatives moving forward, but for right now, what's being proposed is what's desirable because it's connecting many, many different communities, subdivisions along the Owen Road corridor.
It'd go the same place.
Yeah.
It'd be identical, really, except for this one subdivision.
Right, but up and down Owen Road, you have all these street intersections and subdivisions that are off of there that you wouldn't be able to pick up by going through a subdivision.
Does anyone else have a question for Jeff?
I have a question about the funding.
Okay, I was gonna say, does the
Yeah.
board have any
So
questions?
if the township commits to the funding, the 20,000 years over a 5-year period, and I understand it's for these first TAP grants, if we make the application, and we don't win a grant, what happens to those funds?
Well,
Is it null and void?
it's a funding
Is it
commitment.
applied to the
Yeah.
next step?
It's a funding commitment at this point. I
Okay.
mean, those funds really aren't due. So for example, on the Phase 2 project, you committed $20,000 or $15,000 towards that project. Those funds aren't due until just prior to start of construction. So you haven't really spent any dollars at all for the Phase 2 development at this point. So it would be a very similar situation that I think the idea is that you're committing money towards that, which won't become due until 2025 or 2026.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Bob?
I'll apologize before I even go any farther to anybody I upset. But I'm gonna say it anyway, so I guess I wasted your time. Back in 2017, the illustrious laugh group, LAF, that's important in my mind, come to us and gave us a very nice song and pony and dance show, just like you did. And I even sat on the Southern Lakes board at the time, but for some reason was quickly removed. But that's a different point. I asked them what LAF stood for. And they come out and said, Linden, Argentine, and the controlling monster, Fenton. I said, that makes me wonder why you're in Fenton Township. And believe it or not, and I'll dig up the tape if you want to hear it for yourself, one of the people that was here said, you know, I'm glad you brought that up. We've been considering putting another F on there, so it was LAFF for Fenton Township. Damn, at least I accomplished something that somebody gave us an F, and enough said there. And the great news back then was, hey, sometime in 2023, except for a few houses along Owen Road that connects Linden and Fenton, we might touch some of your residents. I'm still not sure why Southern Lakes Park and Rec are even involved. I don't expect you to answer me. You're probably better off not to. we took and made a special election in May of 2017. Because we wanted the people to tell us what to do. And in my mind, they gave us a big F when they voted almost 2-1 against the project. Now, I would have swore I was elected to the board to represent my constituents. Just, maybe you can give me some, you know, I personally care less about the Iron Belt Trail, because the way the road commission has the roads screwed up in Genesee County, Fenton, Linden, Fenton Township, and I haven't been able to get to Argentine because the roads are torn up. I'm not sure if a trail that runs that far I would ever be interested in. And in case you're not catching on, this pathways is the biggest waste of money that we as elected officials in the township could do. Because once we look at this, and if you look at the financials from day one to day whenever it ends, the population in Fenton Township would wind up paying 56% of all the expenses, where the original LAF group, I think it was Linden, Argentine, and Holy Fenton, would only have to pay 40-some. So if you think I had approved it, no. And last time we took it, I think I was the only one that voted against it. But that hopefully will be different, because if we waste money like this on this project when we had other more critical projects to Fenton Township, we're doing something wrong. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Is there anything, any other board members that would like to?
I have a question, Vince.
Okay.
Julia.
Yeah, Julia, how are you?
Good. So, going through his presentation, did I understand properly that it would be the township's responsibility to the permits and oversee the project? And if I understood that correctly, does the township have someone in place that's going to take over that role?
Did you
Yeah.
address that, Jeff?
So again, yes, that it does become the township's responsibility. I think Ed can speak for Southern Lakes. I think Southern Lakes is here to commit to doing the heavy lifting necessary to be able to move the project forward. And then as far as, you know, just overall management, understanding what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, making sure all the boxes are getting checked off as you go through the process, that's really the role of your professional on the project. So that's what we would be here for.
Did he answer your question, Julia?
So, well, further on, and you can see some contention in the audience in there with Mr. Krug, but being a township employee and being there for so long, all those calls are going to filter into the township office. When this project starts and as the project goes on, is the township prepared to handle those things? Because no one's going to call Southern Lakes, they're going to call the township. And are we prepared to do that with this type of project?
Well, I think that, you know, if we want those answers now, you know, as we're just applying for grants, we can certainly sit down and talk to the township about the communication strategies that we employ on projects to make sure that calls are limited to going into the communities that they're served. That's part of our role, is to intercept that, make sure that we're the ones that are on the front line trying to answer those questions. Obviously, we can't prohibit somebody from contacting the township to get their questions answered, but we do our best through strict communication protocols to try to minimize that.
All right, Jeff. If there's nothing else, I'm gonna.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Julia. If there's nothing else, Jeff, I really appreciate it. And again, just to remind everyone, this meeting is televised on channel 199?
191.
191. So if there's anybody on our October 4th, this will come up in front of the board again. So if anybody has anything they would like to voice, you can come to that meeting at that time. Thank you. All right, the next business in order is the meeting minutes. Included in the packet are the meeting minutes from the August 30th regular meeting. Are there any corrections or requested revisions to these meeting minutes? Buddy? All right, hearing none, the meeting minutes stand approved as presented. Moving on to the next business in order, which is expenditures. Are there any questions from the board regarding any of the invoices?
A question on the invoice, but I noticed the invoice form the relatively new cleaning folks. I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to tell us how that process is going.
Actually, quite well. It's one of those things, a good cleaning company is like a good umpire. You don't notice them. And no complaints. We did have a little mix-up in communication on our first rental. And the next week we had another rental and they pulled it off perfectly. So no complaints with hurricane cleaning. I think they're really doing a nice job for us.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Thanks, John. Any other questions for Tom? Hearing none, a motion is in order to approve the expenditures totaling $522,167.46 for payment.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Patrick is absent. Kessler is absent. Krug votes yes. Gopel is absent. Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Moving on, next business in order is public hearings. First one tonight is the rezoning number R21-003, the Fairways of Spring Meadows, LLC, parcel number 06-17-100-008, which is the southeast corner of Linden and Laring Roads, AG to PUD, ordinance introduction and public hearing. Our zoning administrator, Mike Deem, is here. Can you review, please?
Sure. So, a couple months ago, we were here to rezone this from a PUD to ag. And the purpose of that was to split off the properties along Laring Road. Now, the applicant's back to help to develop the rest of the property. The original PUD that was approved back in 2001 was for a 207-unit open space subdivision. What we have now is on 80 acres. The plan has actually been revised for a 60-unit subdivision. I think in your packet it's 70 unit. Well, after the planning commission meeting, the applicant has revised her site plan and reduced the number of lots. So we're looking at a density of 0.75 units per acre. When we look at rezonings, right, the first thing we look at is our master plan. The master plan has this identified for medium density residential. At 0.75 units per acre, that is well below what you would typically find in a medium density residential subdivision. So we mentioned, right, they've revised their plan to 60 units. This is adjacent to the golf course over there in Linden. When we look at the size of the lots, right, for an open space with open space development with 28% open space in an R3 zoning district, which although this is ag, R3 is closer to what's being proposed, right? The minimum lot size would be 12,000 square feet, minimum lot width of 75 feet. Those are being met in the proposed site plan. The setbacks, right, 30 feet for front yard, 35 for the rear, 10 for the sides, those are also being met. Building lot coverage would be 30%, maximum building height would be 29%. They're also proposing sidewalks on both sides throughout the subdivision. The Planning Commission reviewed this. They have passed on a recommendation of approval. And just so you're aware of how the process works, for a PUD, right, it's a rezoning. So there is a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission, and they make a recommendation to the Township Board. preliminary site plan is also reviewed as part of that first meeting with the Planning Commission. If the Township Board moves forward and approves the PUD, then it would go through the engineering phase of the site plan development. And that's where they get approval from the township engineer, all the county agencies, and then come back to the Planning Commission to see what's changed from the preliminary approval. In this case, what the Planning Commission will see is a reduction of lots. But overall, Planning Commission has reviewed this. We had the public hearing. There was no opposition at the public hearing. We had a couple of members express their support in the project. And I'm here to answer any questions. We also have Mike Davidson, who is the applicant, and he's also here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thanks, Mike. I know our treasurer, Mr. Tucker, sits on the planning commission. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do not, other than, can you tell me the basis for the reduction of lots? I mean, generally that's not an issue, but it's also generally not something that happens, so.
Well, Mr. Davidson can explain a little bit more, but there is an easement for electrical wires, I think. There's power lines, and to avoid those, it made more sense to revise the site plan.
Well, Jack whispered in my ear at one point whether that needed to go back to the planning commission before it came to us.
Well, I mean, for final site plan, sure. I mean, you're reviewing the PUD text, right? It says up to 70 units. 60 would be less than 70. You have the ability to amend the text to limit to 60. I don't think a change in reduction of number of lots would warrant further review from the Planning Commission for a preliminary review.
So my concern is that the planning commission passed on something that's now not what's being presented to the board. And it's my thought process and my understanding that the planning commission ought to pass on whatever's being brought here.
Well, I think that things can often change from preliminary review to final. And the layout that the Township Board sees is a conceptual plan. It's not the actual site plan. And there are often times when you get approval for X amount of units, and for whatever reason you decide not to do so many. If it were a difference, if they were looking to increase the number of units, I would wholeheartedly agree. I think that by reducing the number of lots from 70 to 60, that it's consistent with what was reviewed by the Planning Commission.
As I understand what is being presented here is a preliminary request on this plan, and if the board approves that, they're stuck with whatever they approve. And what they're approving and what they're looking at here, there can be other changes, but what the board is looking at here is not the same thing the planning commission looked at. Whether it's good or bad, it's different. And my request and my recommendation to the board is the board ought to look at the same thing the planning commission looked at and see exactly what the planning commission thoughts are on that. And granted, they can make changes, the board can. They can make changes, they can send it back to the planning commission, whatnot, but what the board is being presented is not what the planning commission looked at.
Actually, it is. They're just asking for something different here than what was looked at the planning commission level. And
Right.
what they're asking for here is 60 instead of 70. The exact configuration obviously will be different because there's a utility easement out there that they're going to have to design the lots around.
But John, isn't the board only looking at this point at the ordinance?
Well, but the ordinance comes with a concept plan,
Okay.
and Mike is right, it's not a final site plan, it's not a preliminary site plan, it's a concept plan that goes with the PUD ordinance. Mike is also right in that it says up to 70. So a plan that was to be brought in front of the planning commission that had 60 would meet the criteria of the ordinance. Jack's point is that what we're asking, the planning commission gave a recommendation to the township board based on what they were looking at that time. That was 70 and didn't show this problem with the utility easement. Jack is simply suggesting that the planning commission should see the plan that's got the revised, reduced number of units that will obviously identify where the easement area is, so that when they make a recommendation, what we're voting on eventually will be the same thing that they look at. I think if I'm
Right,
correctly
exactly,
paraphrasing
exactly.
his argument.
So is it in your legal opinion that maybe we should?
I trust Jack. I can guarantee you that the planning commission won't have any problem with going from 70 to 60. It's just a matter of a couple of weeks. You know, if we have that at the October meeting, you know, that would probably our second meeting in October. We'd probably be ready to move along with that.
Would we have to have another public hearing?
That's Jack's question.
Well, you can just continue the public hearing. You don't have to have another, you can just continue it and have the planning commission review this.
All right, so hypothetically, right, have the applicant not come in front of us, you know, part of the reason why you do this in multiple steps is because you don't want someone to do engineering up front, right, for a project that you don't know it's going to get approved or not, because engineering is one of the expensive, you know, most expensive parts of a site plan. So if they were to propose the 70 units today, and then came in front of the planning commission with their final site plan for review, that only had 60 units, would they have to come back to the township board for approval then?
What you're asking the township board to do is approve a conceptual plan. Once the township approves that, they're stuck with whatever they've approved. And if they didn't approve part of it, that can be changed, but whatever they approve, they can't change their mind later. And so, especially because it's being presented piecemeal, I just think that the planning commission ought to see what the township board's getting, because the planning commission recommendation is not related to what's being presented today.
Well, I think it is, but more importantly, if they were to bring the same exact plan, right, which is what is actually in the packet, right, that shows the 70 units, during engineering, right, they find out that the land cannot support 70 units, and now they go in front of the planning commission with only 60 units. Would they have to come back to the township board for approval for that?
No, because the ordinance we would have adopted would have said up to 70, so it would fit in that criteria.
So the fact that the applicant is being proactive and working on their project to get building started faster is actually going to be detrimental to him then, because we already know that the property can't handle the 70 units that was already shown. And so now we're going to make them go back to, where if he had just not said anything at all, right, this procedure would continue on. So we would be, in essence, faulting the applicant for being honest and upfront for a minor change to a conceptual plan that says up to 70 as opposed to 60, which is up to 70.
All good arguments.
Mike, do you have something you'd like to?
Yeah, I
say to the board?
just, Mike Davidson, I'll say my address for the record, 12247 Margaret Drive. So just so, when the planning commission approves this, it's just a conceptual, and it's a conceptual for several reasons. Why I'm here is I have decided to reduce the amount of lots, just because I wanted a little bit different layout. We do have a power line issue that instead of rerouting it, we're just gonna live with and have it be there. But my understanding is they approved the conceptual because now from here, I have to do full-blown engineering, which then has to be approved with your engineering company before I go to the state and the county and the state levels for all my approval. And within this stage, at any point in time, let's just say I did come to you with the 70, this plan can get drastically changed even after you approve it tonight, because we have some wetlands potentially out there that could reroute the subdivision and change some things. We do have the power lines that still have to be addressed in different areas. There could be several things that either your engineering company or state and county things that will make this plan potentially change a little bit. Then the final stage is after we do the full-blown engineering, we work with your engineering company to make sure we're doing it the way you guys want it to be done, so that's one protection. Then we do the state and county approvals. Then after that's all done, then we come back to your planning commission to give us final site plan approval. So by stopping us tonight, you could still approve something that will totally get changed depending on how this lays out with wetlands, with tons of different things. So there's no way you can possibly approve what the final thing is unless it just works out perfectly and there's absolutely no changes. And there's likely to be some tweaks or changes in the plan depending on how everything lays out here. So I don't see why we'd have to take the next step, because you have built-in security measures. One, your engineering firm, and two, final site plan approval that has to be approved by your planning commission. That's the final stage before we can do any development out there.
Jack,
It's tough, because everybody everything they said is all accurate. Everybody's right, and there are good arguments on both sides of it. What I would suggest that we do, this is just, there's nothing in the ordinance I can point to. The planning commission is gonna meet, I think, on the 14th of October. I think our next meeting in October would be on the 18th. Now, what that would mean is if we make them go back, because I'll assure you, well, I mean, we'll let the planning commission talk, but I'm 90% certain they're not gonna have a problem with the reduction that's being proposed. So if they take a look at it on 14th and say, why are you making me look at this? It's obvious, it's less, we're good, you know, that sort of thing. Then on the 18th, we'd be in a position to do whatever it would be that we were going to do on the 4th, which is effectively a 2-week delay and one more trip to the planning commission.
So
Well-
as long as the next time we take it up is a continuation of the public hearing that doesn't require notification, we can do that.
I think that's what Jack said.
I think
That's
you
what
can,
Jack-
yeah.
okay.
He's trying not
I
to.
believe that.
Because we have a 15-day notification for public hearings on
Right.
PUDs, but if it's a continuation where we don't need to notify, then it.
Because you always have the option to send something back to the planning commission for further determination, evaluation, or make whatever changes you want when they send something.
So the continuation will be on the 18th, and then adoption the meeting after that?
Yeah, I mean, did you already post or notify for the adoption, or?
For today.
This is
For
the public
today.
hearing.
Okay.
So it's been noticed, so if
This
we
is the
continue
first
the
reading.
public hearing on the 18th, can we also adopt it that night since it was already introduced in a certain
No,
form?
because it's still the same
Okay.
meeting.
We'd have to go to
for that
the
purpose.
November.
So
Yeah.
the first November
Yeah.
meeting, we could adopt it.
Well, could we do a special meeting from the planning commission before the October 4th meeting?
Yeah.
Sure. Heck, nothing prevents you to have a special.
Right, and then,
We got notice time.
Yeah, I wouldn't charge him for, and this is all procedural. I don't want you, anybody to think that it's substance of the subdivision here that's a problem.
I want to make sure, though, if this plan changes, I don't have to come back to you again, because we're basically in the same exact boat. It's almost
I
kind of.
understand
But I
what
know,
you're
but I'm
saying.
saying, I want to make that clear, that if this plan changes, I don't need to come back to you again, because that's what you're kind of saying. And I know from other developments, you don't make people to keep coming back every time there's a change.
Yeah, but
Oh.
Jack's point is that we should be approving what the current, well, we can approve what the planning commission approved. That's what we're looking at. That's what was
I was
submitted.
just gonna ask you,
could
can
do it.
we approve what the planning commission approved?
We can.
Because then he can make changes in.
Right, well,
Correct.
what
I
he
didn't have to
described-
bring the changes.
The process he described is how it works. I mean, what we see as a concept plan isn't ever what you get at the final site plan. Is it generally really close? Oh, yeah, it's generally really close, but stuff happens, is accurately described, things get moved, units get dropped, units get moved around, you know, stuff happens. So it's not unusual to have changes before you get to final. And we've just recently being a relative term here, changed our process where it comes back to us after the county's looked at everything. So that, because we felt like we weren't getting the most recent stuff when we were doing our final site plan, because they'd run off for approvals after that and there'd be changes. So I don't think anybody's said anything inaccurate here in all of this. And, you know, there's good arguments for both sides of it. So I guess it wouldn't cost them 2 weeks now. I guess I'm talking about a month. But I don't doubt he's planning on hitting the ground before the end of the year anyway.
No, I do have a closing date, though, that
I
prevents.
was gonna say, are you trying to close?
Yeah, if I don't, I mean, and I have 4 sellers, so it's, two of them are contentious, so it's not, you know, it's not necessarily an ideal situation.
What's your date? If you don't mind telling me.
Pardon me?
What's your contingency date?
I actually had to extend today, and I got to close by, I was closing by October 6th, which is 2 days after your October 4th meeting.
But we wouldn't be bringing it October 4th.
Well, now if the only way that that's gonna work is if we just go ahead and approve what the plan commission
Approve.
did, and then we'd be able to do it. Okay?
I mean, we can do that. We can proceed with approving what the planning commission.
It's essentially the same plan.
Yeah.
There's no major differences.
And to me, the biggest argument is the one Mike made. He said we're kind of penalizing him for being upfront.
Being upfront.
Because if he'd just shut his mouth and not said anything, we'd have just zipped along. Jack would have never said anything, and we'd be on to the next fun, exciting thing on the agenda. So given his time for closing, I'm okay with this proceeding. And maybe I'm acting out of school, but I'm almost 100% sure that the planning commission would not have any issue at all with reduction from 70 to 60.
I'm gonna agree with that, so we're gonna proceed. Sorry, Jack.
No, that's fine.
Like I said, it's worth talking about. There's good arguments.
No, there are good arguments, but we are gonna proceed. Yeah, I'll now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting that would like to address the board regarding the proposed PUD rezoning district? Anyone here?
Put him to sleep.
Yes, I was just going to have, I guess since it's only Julia and Melissa, Tom, I can save you a long speech talking about the process if you're joining us via Zoom, so.
There's a couple people out there. There's 1, 2,
Oh,
3, 4.
Tom, all right.
Well, I just ask for people to speak up. It's the easiest way to do it.
All right, I'll just move forward. All right, so Julia, we'll start with you.
Well, I just want to say with the rezoning of this PUD versus some of the other ones that we have, if you got the conceptual plan in there, you'll see that these are nice larger lots and use the open space freely, and it's a nice development that's going to happen within the township.
Thanks, Julia. Is there anyone else that is joining us via Zoom or virtually that would like to speak? Just on the PUD rezoning district? Anyone? Again, anyone here?
We put them all to sleep.
Yeah, I think we open. All right, the public hearing is now closed. The second reading and vote on adoption for the proposed rezoning ordinance will be conducted at the October 4th meeting. All right. Next under public hearings is Cottage Cove Erosion Control Improvement Special Assessment District, hearing on special assessment roll. This is a public hearing on a special assessment roll for the Cottage Cove Erosion Control Improvement Special Assessment District to pay for the construction of a new seawall. If the roll is confirmed as submitted, the amount assessed to each property will be $6,772.73. That will be spread over a 10-year period with interest. The board will now accept public comment on the following only: an individual's assessment in relation to the benefit received, the total cost of the project, the validity of the proceedings to date. It's now open to public comment. Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting that would like to address the board regarding the proposed special assessment roll? Hearing none, is there anybody virtually that would like to speak?
Just one comment, if I could.
Sure. Would you like to come up and could you give us your name, please? You could also adjust that mic so we can hear you.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Tim Vickerman. I'm the HOA president at the Cottage Cove Condominium Association. The one thing that I would like to address with respect to the funds and the payments of the seawall is that we are able to pay off the seawall when we are ready to pay it off. For example, if someone wants to pay their full lot amount at one time, they're able to do so. I've spoke with Tom about this a little bit. And if people want to make payments up to a point and then want to pay it off, that they're able to do so. Understanding that there is interest involved with making the payments and such. Just want to make sure that everybody's in understanding for the community that we are able to pay it off in full whenever the lot owners decide to pay it off.
We're not bonding this every time.
No, this is small enough where we can finance it through the general fund. And so the resolution that's before the board actually starts the interest on November 1st. So anyone who, there'll be confirmation letters sent out to every property owner, and they can pay off with no interest up until November 1st, and then the interest will start on that date.
Okay. My second question is, we're waiting for the permit to be given by the DEQ. I think that's the correct name. And that is going through the process currently, and it seems to take a lot longer than what I would like and what I'm used to dealing with Dow Chemical. I was used to pushing things through pretty quickly, and I think things move quite a bit slower at the government level. So with respect to that, we have to wait for that approval to come through before we can get started. So is that an issue at all in waiting for that approval to come through? Just for my own education.
Well, if the project gets delayed till spring, we obviously won't charge any interest because we would not have paid for anything yet.
Right.
So the 11/1 start of interest was predicated on the project getting done between now and then. But so if that's not the case, we can adjust.
Okay, very well.
And they won't say it out loud, but all of the Eagle people are working from home.
Right.
And
Aren't we all?
Any of us that deal with state government for the last year and a half, it's just been a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, very basic things that we do day in and day out take months and months and months where they used to take a week.
Very,
So,
very understandable.
Don't feel special. They're neglecting all of us equally.
Yeah. We all know how economics works, and prices of
It's COVID.
materials and stuff go up and down and move
It's COVID.
around.
This
So
is pure COVID, and
Yeah.
I was just stunned. 'Cause I do a lot of filing for Corporation Securities Bureau, and I'm looking for something. I mailed them 8 weeks before. And they're like, well, we're all sort of still working at home. It's like, we've been back to work for a year
Yeah.
and 3 months now, and you're all still working from home? Boy.
Yeah, we're honestly just looking to make improvements in the community, make sure everything's shored up nicely, and make sure that everybody that's in that community and around that lake is happy with what gets put in. So we're all working together.
I'll applaud you people, because that's a fair amount of coin, and not everybody's lakefront there. That's,
Yeah.
it's a small piece of frontage, and I've seen road assessments that were less than this.
It's a lot of money, but it's something that lasts a lifetime.
It's worth it.
So you put it in, you get it done,
I agree.
everybody's happy with it, and the results are well worth the amount that you put in over a 8 to 10 year period.
I was pleased you got them all, and I acknowledge one entity's carrying a third of the cost anyway, but to get all those people to agree to that, I applaud you and them, because I agree completely with your sentiment. It's just hard to get people to.
It's
write
not
checks.
easy. It's
Yeah,
not easy.
Yeah.
My first shot at this whole government thing, and Julie's been a great help and guide for me initially, for sure, and helped spur me along. But I think when you have 19 to 22 lot owners willing to step up to the plate and take care of things, I think it's something that shows that the community wants this to be completed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that's either here or attending via Zoom that would like to discuss only the proposed special assessment rule? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, resolution number 2021-29. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, thank you. 2021-29 confirms special assessment roll 2021-04 as the assessment roll for the Cottage Cove Erosion Improvement Special Assessment District. Divides the assessments into 10 annual installments with the first installment due December 1st, 2021. Sets the interest rate at 4% commencing November 1st, 2021. Provides an early payoff adoption and assesses a 1% per month penalty on late installments. Directs the clerk to deliver the special assessment roll with warrant attached to the treasurer. Directs the treasurer to collect the special assessment. Repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
All right.
I'll support.
All right, the resolution's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Kotrick is absent, Kester is absent, Krug votes yes, Gopel is absent, Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
resolution passes.
All right, moving on, next, under public hearings is Pine Lake Improvement Special Assessment District Number 2, hearing on special assessment roll. This is a public hearing on a special assessment roll for Pine Lake Improvement Special Assessment District Number 2 for a 3-year continuation of their weed control program. If the roll is confirmed as submitted, the amount assessed to each property will be $204.61 in the first year and $189.34 in years 2 and 3. The board will now accept public comment on the following: an individual's assessment in relation to benefit received, the total cost of the project, the validity of the proceedings to date. I'll now open it up to public comment. Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting that'd like to address the board regarding the proposed special assessment rule? Moving on, is there anyone that's attending via Zoom virtually that would like to address the board? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none, resolution number 2021-30. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Confirms special assessment roll 2021-05 as the assessment roll for Pine Lake Improvement Special Assessment District Number 2. Divides the assessment into 3 annual installments, where the first installment due December 1st, 2021. Assesses 1% per month penalty on late installments. Directs the clerk to deliver special assessment roll with warrant attached to the treasurer. Directs the treasurer to collect the special assessment roll. Repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
Support.
Second. All right, the resolution's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
I vote yes. Reed,
Yes.
resolution passes.
All right, next under public hearings is the Fenton Township Fire Protection Special Assessment District 2021 Special Assessment Roll. This is a public hearing on the 2021 Fenton Township Fire Protection Special Assessment Roll. The assessment per property remains at $65, just to let those know that's attending both virtually here and on channel 191 that that $65 has been the same for 25 years. Operations manager, broker, will you explain?
Well, as Supervisor Lorraine mentioned, that the assessment has not changed since the district was first created in 1997. It generates enough money to not only operate the fire department, but to set aside funds for capital improvements, replacing trucks, safety equipment, things like that. And fire department does a good job managing their budget and makes this work, which is why we haven't had to increase the amount.
Thanks, Tom. All right, I'll now open it up for public comment. Is Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting that would like to address the board regarding the special assessment role? Hearing none, I'll move on to those attending virtually. Is there anybody attending virtually that would like to address the board? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Resolution number, hearing none, resolution number 2021-31. Clerk Krug, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, this confers special assessment roll 2021-06 as the 2021 Fenton Fire Protection Special Assessment Roll, establishes due and payable date of December 1st, 2021, assesses a 1% per month penalty on late installments, directs the clerk to deliver the special assessment roll with warrant attached to the treasurer, directs the treasurer to collect the special assessment, repeals any conflicting resolutions. I'll move the resolution.
I'll support.
All right, the resolution's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Kessler's absent. Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Gopal is absent. Resolution passes.
All right, the next business in order is reports. Are there any committee reports to be made to the board this evening? All right, hearing none, the next business in order is communications. We have none. Moving on to the next business in order is adoption of ordinances. First one tonight is rezoning R21-002 Diverse Real Estate, LLC, parcel number 06-31-200-008, which is south of Byram Ridge subdivision, adjacent to Lobdell and Linden Roads. From R3 to PUD, this is the second reading and the vote on the adoption. Our zoning administrator Mike Dean will review.
Yeah, so again, right, we're here for a PUD rezoning of the property just south of Byram Ridge. They are looking to do a 122 unit subdivision. This was brought before the township board in, I believe it was May. It may have been June. It was June. And one of the things the township board wanted to see before the applicant came back was a traffic study. A traffic study has been provided to you for your review. It was conducted by Row Professional Services. It was conducted on June 30th, collecting data from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. They were taken at the intersection of Lobdell and Linden Road and Owen Road, Linden Road and Deer Trail, and Lobdell Road and Trotter Lane. Based on the background information provided by Row Engineering, it's their recommendations that to improve the level of service out there, you would need to have full stops, so four-way stops or full-way stops at Linden and Lobdell Road, Linden Road and Owen Road, and then they would recommend that at Linden and Owen Road, a full width right turn only lane be put in. And so the all-way stop control at Linden Road and Lobdell Road would be addressing the existing conditions, as would the turn lane on Linden Road and Owen Road. As you'll recall, the Planning Commission has passed on a recommendation for approval. During their May 13th meeting, the Planning Commission found that the applicant is seeking a deviation from the minimum lot size, lot width, and rear yard setback. Reducing the lot size, lot width, and rear yard setback allows the applicant to provide nearly twice as much open space as indicated in the parallel plan. The parallel plan provides 15 acres of open space, while the revised plan provides 29 acres of open space. Part of that open space acts as a buffer between Cider Creek and the neighboring properties. Land that is classified as open space could be added to the properties to meet the minimum lot size and setbacks. However, this would reduce the buffer and allow houses to be built closer to existing homes. You've already held the public hearing, so tonight you'd be making a decision. You can accept the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval to the Township Board. You can approve the application with conditions. You have the ability to deny the request for not meeting the requirements or basis of determination, or you can ask the applicant to revise and resubmit their application to address any concerns that was brought up during the public hearing and refer it back to the Planning Commission for further review. We have Lyle Wynn with Cider Creek is here. I think the PowerPoint presentation was emailed you as part of your packet. I'm here to answer any questions, or we could have Lyle step up and go through those slides real quick.
Yeah, Mike, why don't you just stay there? I know that our treasurer, do you have some comments?
I will at some point. I talked about this when I was here before. I think, in case you've forgotten, it's my opinion that our ordinance does not allow for reduction minimum lot width below 75 foot in an R3 zoning. That our ordinance does not allow reduction of minimum parcel size below 12,000 feet in a R3 zoning district, and that the density that's proposed is not supported by the ordinance. Mike and I have disagreements about that. We talked about it. We're both reasonable men. I'm right and he's wrong. So that's, I could say a lot more, but given the current situation, I don't think it's necessary.
Jack?
Well, I also think that anytime you're changing these sizes, you know, these dimensions and all that, you have to go to the ZBA. I don't think you can, call it whatever you want, but I don't think it can come to the board for passing. I think it has to go to the ZBA. It doesn't matter what you call it. You're changing the ordinance requirements, and so you're violating your own laws, and the only board that can do that is the ZBA, not the township board. The township board doesn't like you to change the ordinance. But if you're gonna change something, you want to deviate from the ordinance, it has to be the ZBA. That's how that's set up.
Well, here's the issue I have, is we could certainly put this to a vote tonight. I don't think we need, it's at my discretion as far as for public hearing. We had a public hearing, and my discretion for public comment. My concern is that we have a very small board. And there are 3 board members missing. And we have a developer that has a very important question in front of this board. We have 2 lawyers sitting to my left that believe that we shouldn't move forward. And I have a zoning administrator that differs with that. So, Lyle, I really, I will certainly let you come up and speak, but no, go ahead.
Yes, Lyle Wynn with Lombardo Homes, 13001 23 Marwood, Shelby Township. And I think I know what you're getting to. And yes, we would request tabling that until we can see the full board.
Thank you. That was going to be, can I have somebody make a motion?
But do you want to see if you have any public comment?
No. It's my
I'll
discretion.
make a motion that we table this issue until the October 18th.
Postpone, I think.
Postpone. Sorry about that.
Yeah, because it's just
That
going to be
attorney
continuous.
language.
Continue it.
Till October 4th
Yeah.
versus the 18th. We
All right.
make the assumption the full board will be present.
All right, so, there,
That's
that
a
is a motion, correct? All right, do we have a second?
I don't know, Christine, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, is there any further question? Clerk Crew, will you please call the roll?
You really want me to? Tucker.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yes.
Gopel is absent. Kessler is absent. Reed.
Yes.
Kutrick is absent. I will also say yes.
All right,
The postponement stands.
so postponement.
Thank you.
Postponed to the next meeting. All right, moving on to next under adoption of ordinances is we have proposed amendment to land division ordinance, second reading. Vote on adoption. Proposed amendment to lot partition ordinance, second reading. Vote on adoption. And proposed amendment to subdivision control ordinance, second reading. vote on adoption. Our zoning administrator, Mike Dean, will explain.
Sure, just give people a chance to. All right, so we talked about this at the last meeting, and essentially what this is Julia's done a lot of research on this and identified the best practices for communities that are lake communities. Being a lake community, right, we have a number of challenges for defining lot width, lot size based on, you know, the fact that lakes don't just run straight. And how do you define where the rear lot line is for property that can move? So what this does, the amendments to all three of these are essentially revising the ordinances to follow the practices that the township has been following and how we calculate land and following best practices for lake communities.
Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, I need a motion to adopt an amendment to land division ordinance number 516 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Lorraine,
Yes.
Kotrick, Kessler, and Gopel are absent. Tucker,
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Reed,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Also need a motion to adopt an amendment to lot partition ordinance number 688 as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Kessler and Gopel are absent. Krug votes yes. Reed,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Kotrick is absent. Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I need a motion to adopt an amendment to subdivision control ordinance number 176 as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Lorraine,
Yes.
Reed, Reed,
Yes.
trying to throw you in the group. Kotrick is absent. Krug votes yes. Kessler and Gopel are absent. Tucker,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Yep. Next, under adoption of ordinance is the proposed medical marijuana ordinance. This is the introduction and the first reading. Proposed zoning ordinance amendment, medical marijuana, also the introduction and first reading. Our zoning administrator, Mike Dean, will review.
Sure. So what we're talking about tonight is the original marijuana law for the state of Michigan, right? The Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. And this is relating to caregivers. This is not related to medical marijuana facilities. This is not related to recreational marijuana, right? Those are all dealing with the commercialization of marijuana, both medical and recreational. This is the original law that was passed, that when it came through, there was a lot of information in there, but not so much on how to actually enforce it. And it's only taken 10, 12 years or so for us to finally get some direction. And so what we have in front of you is a proposed ordinance that provides a way for the township to actually track caregivers. In the past, it was always, you can't do anything. You can't ask someone for a caregiver, for their caregiver card. You weren't able to tell them where they couldn't go. You know, they were able just to do it. Well, it's worked through the court system, and now we have the ability to control a lot of things that we hadn't in the past. And so this ordinance, one, it begins by requiring a business license. So now we'll know who they are, where they are. By having a business license, we conduct an annual inspection of the site, right? That's part of a business license. It's how we would do it for any business in the township. This would also create provisions that would require the growing of medical marijuana for a caregiver in a dwelling or attached garage. So it would not be allowed in a detached building. It would also restrict the number of primary caregivers to 2, and we'll probably want to talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. And then the distribution of marijuana shall not occur on site. So these three right here are based on a recent court case, DeRuiter versus Byron Township, was settled in 2020. The intent of these are to treat it similar to how we treat a home occupation without making it go through the home occupation process. By doing the business license, we have more control over the inspections, but we're following procedures that we already have. All right, we wouldn't allow a home occupation in a detached accessory building, right? We wouldn't allow, well, we don't, growing. We wouldn't allow people to come on site if it is for sale purposes, so in such a way that it exceeds what would typically be found at a residential use. The next would be to prohibit outdoor growing for primary caregiver operations, all right? And this is consistent with the York Township versus Miller. And the reason why I'm telling you these court cases, I want you to show that these restrictions have been vetted already, right? I don't want to recreate the wheel and put us in a situation where, you know, we'd have to litigate. These have already been litigated. So again, right, we wouldn't allow growing outside. When you bring it back to a home occupation permit, we wouldn't allow someone just to be operating outdoors. And again, so the next one is that would prohibit primary caregiver operations in non-residential zoning districts. And the thought process behind that is that we're, again, treating it as a home occupation because this is not a commercial enterprise. By preventing it in your commercial and industrial zoning districts, you're preventing the temptation of people wanting to create co-ops and, in essence, turn them into dispensaries, which is what this law is not intended to be about. You've already made that decision, right? You've already opted out of the medical marijuana facilities and you've opted out of the recreation. So you've already made that decision that you didn't want this to be commercialized. The intent of this caregiver is supposed to be similar to a home occupation. You should be able to operate in such a manner that it does not affect the neighboring properties. There should be no, it shouldn't be obvious that there is a business of some sort going on this property. And so that is what the intent of this ordinance and then the zoning ordinance is. Now I know Jack sent out an email over the weekend. I just had it here. And I'd like to address some of those comments on there because I think they're really good comments and I think that they are necessary for the discussion. Where did they go? Just give me 1 second here. I know I just pulled it out. All right, well, I know the first one, or the last one, was dealing with why it was not permitted in commercial as opposed to residential. And so, again, right, the reasoning behind that is that we're treating it as a home occupation and that we're not looking to encourage the commercialization. There it is. All right. We're not looking to encourage the commercialization of the medical marijuana. All right, so the first one, right, 6B, right, would allow up to 2 caregivers. All right, a caregiver is allowed to have 72 plants. By having 2 caregivers, you would be allowed up to 144 plants. Now, we talked about this at the Planning Commission, and the thought process behind that, from that discussion, was that we're already limiting it to being indoors within the primary residence and attached garage. That is a limitation of space. The amount of space that you actually need to grow 144 plants, it's unlikely for a home to have that amount of square footage in their basement or attached garage. Now, if you want to limit it to 1 caregiver, that may be a good philosophy to take. It's always easier to increase in the future than to reduce. So it may be in our best interest to start out with only 1 caregiver. The next is 6F, addresses the use of term items related to normal ownership. So again, I think what 6F was addressing is that we wanted to maintain and function as a single-family home. There are going to be times when they need additional service, electrical service, if it's consistent with what you would typically find in a single-family home in that area, I don't think that there would be an issue with that. If they go above and beyond what is typical, then that is when they would not be allowed to do so. Inspections, the business license is where we get the ability to conduct yearly inspections to make sure that they comply with the ordinance. And then we talked about the district regulations. So I am here to answer questions that you guys have. This is the first reading and public hearing. We'll do another round of this at the next meeting, but I am here to answer any questions you guys have.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to now open it up to for public comment. Is there anyone attending tonight's meeting that would like to address the board regarding the proposed medical marijuana ordinances? Okay, is there any? Oh, yes, Brett.
Vince, I have a, in the board, I have a question in regard to this. And we can look at the whole legal perspective of it. We can pass all the ordinances that we want. What's this going to do as far as enforcement is concerned? Because once you pass something along these lines, now it's on the onus of the community to be able to enforce it. And although I'm not personally an advocate of it, I have no problem if somebody uses medical marijuana for that particular reason. My objection with it is that there's an awful lot of people that are claiming that and not using it for medical purposes. So what does it do to us as a community, and what does it do to us as a township if we bring about an ordinance that we now have to enforce, or are we just not going to bother to enforce it?
I was just going to say, I have a lot to answer, but I'll let you.
Yeah, well, if you do.
No, go ahead, go right ahead.
Fred, just so you understand what this gives us some ability to regulate and restrict and monitor and know where they're at. Under the statute that is out there in the state, we had none of that. So what this is far more restrictive than the current state of affairs. Okay? Now, recreational marijuana probably makes all of this moot because that's what's going to take over here in 5 years. But you know, we've opted out of that as well. But at least this gives us the ability to do something, because what we have right now doesn't allow us to do anything.
Oh, that's fine, thank you, I appreciate it.
Mike, is there anything you'd like to add?
This does not affect usage, right? So people are still allowed to use as the state law allows. This does not affect that.
Still get arrested under federal law.
Yeah.
Welcome to Michigan.
Welcome to 26 states.
Question.
Is there anybody else here that's attending the meeting that would like to address the board? Yes, Julia.
My question is, and I had this phone call, and I don't know what the current laws are for our township. However, a property is recently sold and it's zoned ag. And there is a large building on it because it was a farmer that owned it. And from my conversation, from what I understand, Consumers has been out and they are installing upgraded utilities to this farm building now. Is anybody aware of this? Is this in the apparent, and I don't know this for a fact, so these are assumptions, of course, just bear with me for a minute. Is that legal if that is a grow barn? The way things are now, it is not, right?
Well,
and so
well,
when
it could be a medical, it depends on how many plants. The only thing it could be is medical marijuana, which is limited to 5 patients and 72 plants. So that's what it would have to be. What you described to me doesn't sound likely that it would fall within those criteria.
no, and that's one of my questions, because in the assessing office, some of our things are like with permits. We don't do all the permitting at the township, electrical, mechanical, or through the state. So a lot of things, people don't come locally to get permits. and we find them later on down the line, but they have gotten their state permits. And this is kind of the thing that I'm seeing when the question was rose to me, with consumers coming out and setting new poles and adding extra ampage to this barn, are we notified? Is there any type of things that we can do so that we're alerted to this if people don't come get a home occupation permit as well?
Mike, you and I talked about that.
Yeah, so we've been working with the electrical inspector, and he has been starting to let us know when residences have been pulling larger amp service than typical. And so that would be one mechanism that we'd be able to utilize for finding those that are operating without a permit.
Have we found any so far?
Well, again, right, if they're caregivers, we don't have anything that would prevent them from doing that right now. And this would allow us to have that enforcement procedure to do so.
But if they're caregivers, they're limited to 72 plants, which wouldn't require additional wattage.
Well, I
would
don't know about
disagree.
that.
I would ask how you know.
When we started this project about what, Mike, about 3 or 4 months ago, I've been asking Mike about it for a long time. I did some research. I actually visited companies that are making pods that grow 12,000 or 1,200 plants per pod. And the amount of energy and the filtration and everything else, you know, that's when I was asking Mike today about 144 plants. 144 plants, the electricity that's going to take that, we would certainly, you know, you're probably talking a 600 amp service. I'm sure there's somebody that probably knows more than I do about it, but just a limited research I've done by research or talking to individuals, it takes a lot of power. And, you know, unless you want the whole neighborhood to stink, you've got a lot of issues to grow 144 plants. So, you know, that's certainly an issue I'm going to have with it in its current state. I mean, I'm not against medical marijuana, and again, but anybody that can, in a home, think of just corn. You know, how many rows of corn do you have in a house? So I think that's an issue. You're going to find people that are going to have a 1,000 square foot house and then, you know, 24,000 square foot garage. You know, I have issues with certain things, but I think that, you know, I certainly think that we have to look at this more in detail. But I think it is a great first step in being able to, at least being able to have controls in place, you know, that we can monitor where these things are at and things like that.
And this wasn't mentioned, but this is a police power ordinance. This is not a zoning ordinance. So what it would do is give us the ability to get legal involved in those kind of scenarios. And, you know, there's search
Now I have
warrants.
another question too, when you brought up a 1,000 square foot house and them having an outbuilding double the size. I know we've already done our accessory ordinance a few times, but I know there are some other communities that do not allow accessory structures over and above the square footage of their primary residence.
And that we can easily control.
So I don't know if that's something, just throwing that out there, if you're looking at that aspect of it, we might want to look at kind of fitting that in, or if instead of just going on accessory square footage, if the accessory is over the square footage of the residence, then a variance or some other sort of thing would be needed in that instance, and not just going off the square footage. And I don't do the ordinances, so I don't know, but I know that there are things in place at other municipalities where accessories cannot be over the square footage of their home.
Julie, if you have an address, put it on my desk. I have a friend who is an FBI agent that would gladly look in. I kid you not.
So I think to address that question, right, by preventing it from being in a detached accessory structure, I think that really would address that issue, right? Because it's going to be part of the home, and you know there is an odor associated with it, right? But if it's within your dwelling, you're more likely to control it than if it's in a detached structure or growing outside.
So with that, that would eliminate the scenario that I just brought forth, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And it doesn't matter what the zoning is?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't fall under Right to Farm Act either.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yes, Fred?
Just a quick follow-up to that. As far as that particular structure is concerned, who has to be the resident of that particular structure? Is it owner occupied? Is it patient occupied? Is it caregiver occupied? Is something to that effect in the ordinance?
Yeah, so it's caregiver occupied.
Caregiver.
You have to be, the caregiver, whoever's licensed as caregiver has to be living in that house.
Okay, so somebody can't just buy a house and turn it into a
Correct.
house without physically living on the premises?
Correct.
Thank you.
And being a caregiver,
Yes.
Licensed caregiver.
licensed caregiver.
Yes.
Gotta have the license.
All right. Is there anybody else? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up to the podium and give us your name, please? Fred just has a loud voice, so I allowed him to say it.
Hello, my name is Sakib Nakadar. My address is 4478 Duval Court in Bloomfield Hills. I'm a physician. I've worked in the medical marijuana industry for many years now. I've been appointed by Governor Rick Snyder to an advisory panel, and I currently sit on a review panel for the state as well. I've worked with many communities developing the ordinances and different things that go along with the challenges that you face. So I heard a few of the things that you guys are trying to tackle right now. And just kind of quickly, I saw a few issues, going back to the point of whether you have 72 or 144 plants really isn't going to make a difference, because someone can fill this room with 72 plants that are just very large, consume twice the amount of energy that 144 small plants can take. So, the size and those things are not regulated by the state, or the law does not really restrict the size of the plant. So, someone can have a large basement and then grow 144 really large plants, and again, put the stress on the electrical system, fire hazards, all those kind of things, which are typical in a lot of communities. So communities have taken different methods in restricting how many plants are in the residential area, because that's really where the problem lies, right? Because people are going to be walking down, you're going to build these beautiful new paths, and you're going to be walking down and all the houses are going to smell like marijuana because the smell is going to come out. And there's just going to be very limited situations where someone's going to have 100% control of that smell. So the denser areas this is where it really becomes a problem. So a lot of communities actually take the square footage of the home and then give a percentage of that square footage to be allowed to use as the grow area in any one home. What that does is allow the size to be contained, one, and so the whole home isn't being used for a grow operation, because that's what typically ends up happening in a lot of these situations. 2,000 square foot home, someone's living in 100 square feet and they're using the rest of it as a grow operation, So there's going to be a way they're going to circumvent some of these ordinances and the rules that you're putting into place, which I understand what you're trying to do, but sometimes aren't as effective. In this community may not be that effective. Not allowing it in the outhouses or unattached facilities will be a good way to kind of eliminate that. But as much as you're restricted in the residential area, there's still always going to be people who are going to be doing this because the law allows them to do it. So actually taking some of your commercial areas or light industrial or industrial areas and designating them as caregiver facilities and then allowing and putting these ordinances into place will really kind of help the community adapt, put the people who want to do it in the right places, give you better control of what's going on. Power, supply, all those things will be much better appropriated to those areas. And then again, you're still allowing people to do their own cultivation in their homes, but not making it a problem for the rest of the community. So, there's a lot of ways to kind of, do this. Some communities have taken really hard lines, and again, then they go into the litigation side of it and things like that. You also have 12 recreational plants that you have to deal with as well, because each homeowner is now allowed to grow 12 additional recreational plants, just from the recreational law, whether you opt in or not. So, all these things combined, I would definitely take, a little bit stronger look at some of the language in the ordinance, just to kind of help restrict some of those things that, the community is trying to do. And it's definitely better for the community. And I'm an advocate for medical marijuana, but I'm not an advocate for it to be a problem for society and still allow patients to get access to much needed medicine, So we can always have that debate on who's using it and who's not, but there's definitely people who benefit, and there's definitely people who take advantage of a system. And I think that, you know, the ordinances can help mend that for the community and help bring both sides together a little bit better. Thank you.
Do you think the approval of rec is going to make that issue moot? I mean, it seems to me, you know, the argument is no longer an argument.
Meaning approval of rec in terms of the licensed facilities, or?
Well, the debate about, that you just mentioned.
Yeah, whether it's medical or recreational. No, there's always a place in medicine for people to do things. Not everybody uses it recreationally. They're not familiar with it. So on a daily basis, what I do is I introduce people to marijuana for the first time, you know, teach them this is how you dose it. This is, you know, how you're going to use it appropriately and treat your ailment without actually using it recreationally. So, you know, it's just a matter of kind of finding those two differences. And, you know, and again, I'm not particularly an advocate for just everybody to use marijuana all the time, but I think there's definitely uses, whether it's recreational or medicinal, that, you know, can be adapted and adopted into a society or community, even if there are people opposed to it, because it's just, you know, some people are opposed to alcohol use and other things, but, you know, we've formed ways to adopt it into society.
Well, I thank you for your input, because it's rational. You know,
Yeah,
you're being
and so yeah,
objective about this. And
so I had a few people in the community that told me about this meeting happening, and that, you know, there's going to be an ordinance passed, and so there was concern, because, you know, that's kind of the concern you hear from other communities is, hey, you know, there's all these grow houses, and it affects property value too. So, you know, if one person's in a home and then he buys the next 4 houses and they're all grow houses, now the one person there on the street is, you know, kind of left with, when he's trying to sell their house, it makes a difference. So, you know, all these things have to be taken into account, and I think at the end of the day, it's, you know, it is important to have these ordinances in place and have control over these things. Otherwise, it will get out of hand, you know, so.
I'm going to give you a little perspective, because you weren't here. I don't know, it was 5 years ago, I don't know how long ago, we were looking at an ordinance pertaining to, it was before rec, so it was a medical marijuana ordinance. And we had a lot of people that we weren't familiar with in the audience. And there was a certain smell in the room that night. And we heard for about an hour and a half about, you know, how we were infringing on their constitutional rights, and they were all from nowhere near here. So to have you here come and provide, you know, I think constructive criticism of what we're trying to do that's objective, relative to what I had a few years ago, you are a welcome and blessed sight.
And I've done town hall meetings, I've done, you know, situations where the community can come ask questions and we can inform them and kind of really have everybody understand what exactly is going on. It's really helped in some situations. In some situations, it still provided the community the information they needed, but they decided not to use it, and that's fine too, you know. But I think valid information and good information is really important to making these good decisions. So I'd offer that service to you guys anytime, or if you guys need help, you know, drafting any language or order.
Drop your card.
Well,
Yeah,
Doctor,
most definitely.
I was going to ask you, would you be willing then to meet with Mike or, you know, converse on the phone? If you have all this experience going back to Snyder from the beginning of this process, you do have, you know, you are a doctor, and there's, I've got another follow-up question. I know this has been a long meeting and everybody probably wants to get home and it's probably giving me bad looks, but so if you're willing to do that, that would be great. You can drop us off a card, and that would,
Absolutely.
because I certainly have a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one question that I would like to ask you this evening, and I've always wanted to present this question, and the time that I've spent researching this, is it seems to me that not only our state legislature, but many across the country have made a large mistake in allowing these medical marijuana to be grown at home. And my question to you is that when I look at something as medicinal or medication, and you talk about the benefits, you know, if I certainly had someone in my family that I was told that had cancer and you know, marijuana would help them, I would certainly not oppose that. My question to you is that when I see the state doing what it's doing and allowing these home caregivers to grow marijuana, to me, there's no regulation to what's in that marijuana. I mean, to me, you write me a prescription today, I have a bad back, and you give me a Vicodin or something.
Correct.
I know exactly, you say I can give you 5 milligrams, I can give you 10 milligrams, you take it 3 days a week. don't take it with acetaminophen. I mean, we know all of that. My concern is that we have a lot of people that are growing this stuff in their homes, and they're supposed to be caregivers for people, but we really don't know what they're selling or giving to a patient. So I would like you to explain to me how do we balance that? I mean, I understand there's medicinal things for
Right.
marijuana, but to me, we have to find a way to control that. And to me, it seems allowing a caregiver to grow it in their home is not the way to do it. Maybe it's done on a different scale, where it can be, the THC can be measured, that dosing can be measured, things like that. If you're gonna call it medical marijuana, I mean.
Right. So, yeah, on that end of it, going back to it, the law was not written by physicians, and it was not written by people who particularly knew enough to make this a proper law. It was pushed by people who wanted marijuana forward. You know, I mean, that's really where it came from. They used the medical platform, right? That was their political platform. That was their strength in terms of showing why it was necessary or why we needed this change in our country, you know? And so that's really kind of how it tumbled over. And so these laws just were poorly written. They were written very vaguely and with just not a lot of direction to begin with. And that's kind of the mess that we've been in. In 2016, MMFLA came along. You guys talked about that, you know, opting out. But that's what sets up lab testing. You know, that's what sets up something where you can take a product and know how much is in there. So now, you know, when I dose a patient, I'm telling them go get 5 milligrams of THC, and you know, and then we're going to start increasing your dose and figure out what you tolerate and what works for you. You know, but I couldn't do that back then. Before all that, I mean, there were no tests or milligram dosages or all that. So we were kind of left to using caregivers for the most part because they were the ones producing the medication. There was nowhere else to get it. So, you know, I mean, as much as why did we do it? I mean, that was the way the system started and it worked. And, you know, you're going from something that was still federally legal to a state legal system. So you didn't really have physicians who were backing it, or you didn't have medical associations and other you know, institutions really being able to get involved with cannabis because it was still classified and still is as a Schedule I drug. So, you know, you had these barriers that just haven't allowed both sides to really kind of come together and do that, which is slowly changing, and change is slow, and it's happening. Research is happening. Things are coming along, and I think you will see a much more regular, I mean, it's out there now. It's just not out there like in terms of what people understand it to be yet. So, you know, as people start to understand it more and understand, hey, look, this is what's happening here. Now you have tested material. Yeah, we can argue about how valid those test results are, and you know, you can go back and forth about some of those, but this is the framework and the set, you know, everything being set up for a regulated system to, you know, deal with those situations.
Thank you. That's all I have. Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from anybody in the audience or that is? Thank you very much, Doctor.
You're welcome.
I appreciate
I'll drop
it.
my card off.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I'll now close the public hearing. I've already asked the board. The second reading and vote on adoption for the proposed ordinances will be conducted at our October 4th meeting. Moving on, the next order of business is unfinished business. We have none. Moving on to new business, we have resolution number 2021-32, Taverns License Application, Mo Pizza, Inc. I'm sure we've all had a chance to review the memo in our packet. Operations Manager Broker, will you explain?
Yes, the proprietors of Mo Pizza are taking over the former Canadian Steak and Fish restaurant there in Thompson Road, and they're looking to get a tavern license with Sunday PM sales permit to go along with the restaurant. And
Can I just interrupt here? Before you guys leave, I have permission to interrupt?
Absolutely.
I know that a lot of you are here for Cider Creek, okay? First of all, I want to make sure you understood what happened. The meeting has been pushed from tonight to 2 weeks from tonight, the vote. So to the extent you want to be voiced 2 weeks from now, you need to come back. Now, I also know that you're probably frustrated by having to do that, and I simply want to tell you there are sound legal reasons that we would want to give the applicant the opportunity to postpone, okay? What we're essentially doing is strengthening whatever the board's decision is going to be when we get to that point. Tonight, there were only 4 of us. You'd have to have 4 votes to pass, and if you heard me talk and ask for a vote, you probably need your head examined, okay? So I just want you to understand there's more going on than maybe what you get here, and I recognize that it's frustrating. So I appreciate you coming. Come back in 2 weeks. There's a reason for this. Okay?
Thank you. And again, I wish I would have been able to say the same thing. I just felt it was, there's a reason that we have 4 people here and it requires 4 votes.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it wouldn't have happened.
You should have seen the look in Christine's eye when we were.
3-1?
She gave me a legal twinkle from down there, and I got it all the way over here. I knew exactly what she was thinking.
All right. I guess, Mr.
I'm sorry for the interruption, but they said
Brooker,
patiently, and I didn't
So,
want them to get out of here.
just to continue, the tavern license is not subject to any quota limitations. It's a beer and wine only license, and that's all they are requesting at this point. So in order to take their application to the state, they need a resolution of support from the township. This is very similar to resolutions we've done in the past for the same purpose.
Thank you,
That's
Mr. Broker.
basically the same license that they had at Canadian.
Canadian State Fish also had a tavern license.
Yep.
Are any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, resolution number 2021-32, Clerk Crew, will you please present the resolution?
Yes, the resolution recommends approval of the issuance of the following licenses and permits to Mo Pizza Incorporated, new tavern license, Sunday sales permit, PM, for a business located at 3235 Fenton Road, Thompson Road, Fenton, Michigan, 48430. I'll move the resolution.
I'll support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Krug votes yes. Reed,
Yes.
Kotrick and Kessler and Gopel are absent. Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, next under new business is the appointment to the Fenton Township Planning Commission. The term of planning,
I'm sorry, I skipped over one, sorry.
all right. The term of Planning Commissioner Mark Mastola has expired, and he has expressed a desire to continue in the appointed position. Mark does an excellent job on the Planning Commission, therefore I am recommending that he be reappointed to a 3-year term.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or concerns? All right, Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Yes. Reed,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Gopel and Kessler and Kotrick are absent. Krug votes yes. Motion, yeah, let me try again. Motion passes.
All right. Moving on to next, under new business, is proposed hiring of Fenton Township Fire Department. Chief Oltz was certainly planning to be here, I guess. Chief, are you on Zoom? All right.
Nope.
He's not here?
Nope.
However, he did have an unexpected death of a friend from a neighboring fire department. However, he did, I spoke to the chief on several occasions, and he highly recommends the hiring of Edward Eglin. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the hiring of Edward Eglin III as a member of the Fenton Township Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussions, or any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
I'll get them.
Yeah, getting a little punchy.
Kotrick is absent, Kessler's absent, Gopel's absent. I'm here, I vote yes. Tucker,
I'm here too, and I vote yes.
Lorraine,
I'm here, yes.
you wanna vote?
Sure.
Okay,
I'll vote yes.
motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, moving on to the next, under new business, appointment to Building Code and Fire Code Board of Appeals. We've all had a chance to review the memo in our packets. Operations Manager, will you provide any additional explanation?
Just kind of catching up on these, with COVID, these kind of expired out, they don't meet very often, maybe once every 3 or 4 years, so people can complete 2 terms without ever having to sit in a meeting, but just to be in compliance with the construction code authority, or the construction code, we want to put this back in place. 3 of the members, Mr. Shana, Mr. Weir, Mr. Mastola, had previously served on this board. Mr. Curtis and Mr. Huntoon were new recruits that Julie Lewis identified.
All right, thanks, Tom. Is there any questions from the board? No. Do you need a resolution for each one? So
Yes.
I need a motion to appoint John Shana to the Fenton Township Construction Code Board of Appeals and Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2022. So have a motion?
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you call the roll?
Gopel's absent. Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Patrick is absent. Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Kessler's absent. Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I need a motion to appoint Ward Curtis to the Fenton Township Construction Board of Appeals and Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2022.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
And Gopel, Kotrick, and Kessler are absent. Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I need a motion to appoint Jeremy Huntoon to the Fenton Township Construction Code Board of Appeals and Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Kotrick, Gopel, and Kessler are absent. Motion passes.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I need a motion to appoint Chris Weir to the Fenton Township Construction Board, Construction Code Board of Appeals and Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Lorraine?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Kotrick, Kessler, and Gopel are absent. Motion passes.
All right, moving on, I need a motion to appoint Mark Mustola to the Fenton Township Construction Code Board of Appeals and Fire Code Board of Appeals for the term ending September 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Reed?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Kotrick, Gopel, and Kessler are still absent. Motion passes.
That was brutal.
Thanks, Bob. I know, that was brutal. My throat wasn't even working on the last two.
Well.
All right, next under new business is proposed the Genesee County Road Commission Agreement for Hogan Road Bridge. I know we've all had a chance to review the memo in our packet. So are there any questions or comments from the board?
I just feel like we've seen this several times. It would be great if one day it actually got done.
Well, it's been approved for funding in 2023, so, you know, the board had, let's see, the history, I put the history in the memo. In April of last year, we committed the money if it gets approved. We reported in October it was approved, and now this is the contract to formalize that commitment of $188,400, which is an estimate out of the 1.57 million that will go into this project in 2023.
Good memory, Christine. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Any other questions from the board? All right. I need a motion to approve the construction agreement with the Genesee County Road Commission for the replacement of the Hogan Road Bridge over the Shiawassee River as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Krug votes yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Tucker?
Yes.
Gopel, Kotrick, and Kessler are still absent. Motion passes.
All right, next under new business is proposed GCRC local road agreement, Enid Boulevard. Again, we've all reviewed the memo in our packet. Operations Manager Broker, you want to provide any additional detail?
No, just the next step in the special assessment process. approving the agreement so the county can start doing the design with looking towards 2022 for construction.
All right. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the local road agreement with the Genesee County Road Commission for the rehabilitation of Enid Boulevard to be complete, what?
Bob was jumping the gun.
To be completed under a special assessment district as
Caught me, huh,
presented.
Tucker?
Bob, no, hit it.
No,
I'm gonna make it now. No, I'm move resolution,
All right.
motion.
The motion's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk Krug, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Lorraine?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Krug votes yes. Tucker?
Yes.
Kessler, Gopel, and Cotrick are still absent.
Motion carried.
It's approved.
All right, we're getting close, everyone, we're getting close. Everybody can get out their phones. What I'd like to do next is schedule a workshop meeting. I don't want to go over everything, but I'd like to schedule a meeting sometime in the month of October to cover a number of issues. So if we could all get out our phones, and maybe we could throw out some dates.
We'll be out of town the 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Do we like to keep it prior to a board meeting?
Well,
No?
not necessarily, because it
This
does
could be a
limit your
long one.
time. So
Yeah.
it's probably easier to do it on an off night.
Off night?
An off Monday probably works.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that would be the
10th?
11th?
Or
11th
11th?
25th.
Let's see what I'm doing on
That's Columbus Day. I don't know, or in
the 11th. Already got his
Indigenous
gift.
Peoples' Day, so I don't know if you,
Already got his gift.
all right. I just was putting it out there.
I can do
Maybe
it.
you sail the Pacific on that day, I don't know.
Oh, we're getting punchy.
What about the
We're way
11th?
past.
Does the 11th work?
That was Columbus Day. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either.
Works for me.
All right.
What time do I do it?
What time?
6?
Yeah, let's do something a little earlier.
5?
Oh, she means earlier than 7.
6? Okay,
Yeah.
6 o'clock it is.
Yeah, sorry, I meant
You wanna
earlier than
provide
7:30.
food?
Yeah,
6 works.
we'll
great.
provide some food. And Tom, if you could shoot everybody out an invite for that, so we don't have to put them into our calendars right now, I'd greatly appreciate that. The next business in order is board comment. Is there anyone on the board who has additional comments? No, you do not. We'll move right on.
I want to know who put this agenda
Oh, you didn't
together.
want to hear this list?
Oh, do you really have some?
I want to know who put the agenda together, because I'm going to kill him.
Does anybody else have any, is there any other board
You guys
comment?
don't hurry up, those absent people may show back up.
Yeah, they could be.
They might start arriving, might be morning.
Lions probably already lost.
Yep. All right. Since there's no board comment, we're moving. The next business in order is public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. We will now open up the meeting for public comment on agenda and non-agenda items.
I'll dare someone to talk.
All right, first, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board? If so, I would ask that you go to the podium, state your name and address for the record, adjust the microphone, and please limit it to 3 minutes.
Whoa, look at that. You're
Loving
talking right-
on.
talking right out of it.
We're going to move on to those that have joined us via Zoom. Is there anyone that has joined us via Zoom that would like to talk about agenda or non-agenda items?
dear Lord.
Julia?
I just have one quick question. It's on the Enid Boulevard thing, because I had a call and I didn't know that they were switching those lots and finally fixing that road. But I've since been informed that they are. Does that special assessment that they're doing, are they putting it where the road is, or are we waiting till that amendment gets finished? Does that have any implications on getting that road moved and flip-flopping the properties?
It has no effect. The modification, the road is going where the road is. The problem
Right.
is when you look at the plat, that's not where the road is supposed to be. So
Well,
what's happened in
That's
court.
my question.
Yeah, the court approval is to change the plat, so the plat reflects where the road actually is right now. Okay?
Right, so that's my question. If the road commission would have actually looked at the plat before they put in and paved the original road, we wouldn't be doing that step right now. So that's what I just wanted to make sure that that was, if that's already in progress and it's not an issue.
And the court part of it's just about done. The comment I made earlier about people working from home includes the attorney generals who deal with these things. So it took them 8 weeks to respond, and finally have heard back with them. So they put up a big fuss all to say we agree.
Well, it's something that needed to be done a long time ago. I'm glad it's finally getting done.
Yeah, glad to help.
Is there anyone else that has any other public comment? Hearing none, it is now 9:47. If there's nothing else, I say good night, and the meeting is adjourned.
You know, and honestly, for everything that we did,
Good job.
that's just a good time.